Our first speaker today is Meabh Cormacain. Meabh is Energy Advisor at the Department of the Economy, a post she's held since 2019 in July. She is former manager of the Northern Ireland Renewables Industry Group, NIREG, and is the trade body for the renewable electricity industry in Northern Ireland. Prior to joining the energy sector, Meabh worked in South America and Southeast Asia for international aid agencies. Meabh, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you to everyone who's joined today, including the presenters. I'll take a little bit of your time to introduce the background to Northern Ireland Energy Strategy, which, as many of you know, is under development. And I think this will provide the context for the presentations that will come after. And thank you to Paul for such a helpful overview of hydrogen and the opportunities and the sheer range of issues that hydrogen can help as we move in this energy transition. So really, to kick off, we are working within the department and across government on a new energy strategy for Northern Ireland. You'll be aware that the previous energy strategy ran from 2010 to 2020, so we are very much required and want to ensure that we can set direction from 2020 now to 2050. Much of the work that's been ongoing since late last year has been building a better evidence base. And the emphasis of the energy strategy is decarbonisation and consumers. The context, as you'll all no doubt be aware, I've already mentioned, you probably can't see it there, but I've already mentioned the Strategic Energy Framework 2010-2020. The UK became the first major economy to pass net zero emissions law. That was last year. It seems longer. The New Decade New Approach document, which came out earlier this year, prioritises climate change and specifically refers to an energy strategy. And of course, the Assembly itself declared a climate emergency. So decarbonisation is a clear direction of travel right across Northern Ireland. Just to point out what we have been able to do so far. So one of the targets from the previous Strategic Energy Framework was 40% electricity to be consumed from renewable sources by 2020. The figure is now 47.7%. Most recent figures show nearly 48%. But the 16% is an important one because 16% is actually the percentage of dispatch down of available renewable wind energy in 2020 so far. And as has already been mentioned by Paul, that represents effectively wasted energy, wasted resources, and a wasted opportunity. So this is one of the specific issues that we think has potential, and obviously GenCom is already looking at in terms of utilising the resources that we have and maximising the resources that we have. So just to give you a brief overview of the timeline, some of you on this presentation will no doubt have responded to the call for evidence, which was issued late last year. The evidence gathering process continues. It didn't stop when the call for evidence closed. We're continuing to commission research. We're continuing to gather evidence and pull evidence in from different data sources. Nonetheless, alongside that pulling together of evidence, we are also developing options in order to inform an options consultation for the strategy in March next year. There's reference here to 5 thematic working groups. I will go through those shortly. And the ultimate aim is to ensure that we have a final energy strategy in place by November 2021. Just a very brief overview of what we've done up until now. As I said, the call for evidence was the first public phase of engagement for the Northern Ireland Energy Strategy. We received 161 responses, and of those, they were across a wide range of topics. The energy strategy itself is attempting to decarbonise the energy sector across heat, power and transport. And we noted in responses significant number of people, organisations, etc., referred to opportunities for hydrogen. We did publish a summary of these reports in June, but as I mentioned earlier, evidence gathering is a continuous process. We continue to build up our evidence base. And note as well that as we develop an energy strategy, it's not being done in a silo. Very conscious of the policies and strategies that impact upon energy strategy in Northern Ireland, whether that's still clean energy for all Europeans, the UK policy, for example, Road to Zero for transport, and also within Northern Ireland, there are other strategies such as green growth, which impact on our decarbonisation trajectory for energy. So we have up until now been working on quite a thematic basis. We've established working groups on these 5 topics: consumers, energy efficiency, heat, power and transport. These working groups pull together membership from across government, central, local government, industry, other representatives, arm's length bodies, and the working groups are developing policy options for further consultation. I'm going to briefly go through the 5 key areas that we're developing policy options for further consultation. We don't refer specifically to hydrogen across each of these. The purpose of this is to acknowledge that within, I suppose, in terms of the webinar today, we'll hear about how hydrogen can support and provide input to any and all of these key themes. So I referred to the 5 key themes. So the first, if we bring up here heat, key topics identified already are the future of oil and solid fuels, the future of the gas network and decarbonising gas, clear opportunities there for hydrogen, as well as renewable heat technologies. The phrase that Paul already used, there's no silver bullets, absolutely correct. We recognise that solutions to decarbonised heat will be more like, I think the new phrase is silver buckshot. So we anticipate that there'll be a number of solutions to decarbonising heat across Northern Ireland, which may be dependent on geographical location, for example. When we think about the power sector, as already referred to, is probably the area where we've had most success up until now in terms of renewable electricity targets. We will go further, and we've already made a commitment to at least 70% electricity from renewable sources by 2030 as a marker, as a stepping stone on the way to 2050. In order to deliver new targets, the working group is looking at routes to market for renewables, what technology mix may be appropriate for Northern Ireland for the future, whether it needs to be diversified, how to ensure ongoing public support for renewables, and in total, how to transform the power sector to one which is effectively fully decarbonised in 30 years' time. Transport, not the responsibility of the Department for the Economy, but as noted at the start, we're working across government, and so the Department for Infrastructure is leading on this theme within energy strategy, and have identified 4 areas. Modal shift is, for example, active travel. It's effectively, I suppose, demand reduction, which might include public transport or demand management measures for private cars. The electrification of transport is where we've seen some growth in Northern Ireland, but more will be required. But I think it's generally recognised that electrification of all transport is not possible. And so there is another strand of work looking at alternative fuels, and again, of specific relevance to this seminar and to this topic. A further theme identified is the future of mobility. And what that means is, in one sense, what we're doing right now, we're not commuting to work, we are digitalising our working space. We are reducing and removing the need for certain types of travel. Future of mobility may also include smart cities or mobility as a service. So energy efficiency, crucial to deliver any ambitious target for decarbonisation. The working group is looking at a new energy efficiency target, regulatory frameworks, new standards for energy efficiency. And of course, what's going to be important is energy efficiency for existing buildings and how that can be encouraged. And I suppose a common theme across all of these, and just highlighted here, is how to build capacity and capability. There will be new skills, new training, new jobs required to deliver on each and any one of these. And that's just mentioned here specifically. It came out quite strongly in responses to the call for evidence. So consumers are at the heart of the energy strategy. Without consumers, there is no energy strategy. So there's a consumer working group trying to ensure that consumers are brought in across each strand of the energy strategy. So that the strategy is co-produced, which is an approach outlined in the New Decade New Approach document. And there will be reference groups for domestic and non-domestic consumers who can engage and provide input and consumer knowledge. And specific areas for, I suppose, for engagement, information and advice. So these are three key themes: citizen energy communities, how people can access information and advice. It has come across very, very strongly during workshops for the call for evidence process, as well as the call for evidence responses. There was a clarion call for more available information, support and advice for not just for housing, individuals, consumers, but also for businesses. So that's a key area that we know we need to look at. And how do we, as we transition to this energy future, which will look considerably different to the energy present, how do we enable consumers who want to get engaged? How do we protect those who may want to get engaged, who may not be able to get engaged, who may be vulnerable? So another key area of work, which I'll just briefly mention here, because we will at some point in the near future, I hope, have a live version of this available. We're developing an energy transition model, which effectively replicates the energy system and runs scenarios on potential energy pathways. So we all know that decarbonising energy by 2050 could take a number of different pathways, and the energy transition model will help us to run scenarios on what those pathways might look like. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, this slide, which I think we're nearly at the end here, but it's to say we know that apart from these 5 key themes that I've talked through, there are many other issues that will need to be taken on board for the energy strategy. So what is the role of new technologies and innovation, smart technologies, for example? To what extent can we improve data management, data access? What is the value of data? We need to recognise that decarbonisation of energy is also going to be able to facilitate clean growth. So the role of energy in the economy is crucial. Business and industrial energy, which is something that we're building a better evidence base on at the moment. And of course, to pull all of this together, how do we deliver? So what do we envisage as the role of local councils for the future? What legislation is supportive of a net zero energy sector by 2050? What legislation may need to be brought in or changed? Again, is regulation sufficient to take us to 2050? The changes need to be made there. And how do we look at the governance of energy and climate across Northern Ireland to ensure that we can deliver it most effectively? So as I say, we are working across government up until now. So we have a government stakeholder group. We have already mentioned working groups in existence, and these are the kind of a sample of who's involved in these working groups. And of course, we're collaborating cross-border with, I've just noted, it's not DCCAE anymore. I believe it's, I think it's DEC. It's now been renamed, so somebody may wish to correct me, as well as Scottish Government and of course BEIS, because as mentioned earlier, policy development at a UK level will always impact upon Northern Ireland. And I've got here, I know we're taking maybe a couple of questions, and I'm happy to do that at this point in time and also at the end of the webinar. But just to say that one thing that we've wanted to ensure people are aware of is we have a monthly energy strategy e-bulletin, which usually goes out on the last day of the month. It's a very short, accessible document. This is the email address if you wish to sign up, or indeed if you wish to get in contact on any other issue. But the e-bulletin is a really useful way of keeping on top of what's going on in energy strategy, and it's our way of just communicating at a high level what the department's working on as we move towards a further consultation in March. So thank you.
Meabh, thank you very much indeed. It's not easy being the opening speaker and then you're setting the scene. But if we look at the title, it's Exploring Opportunities for Northern Ireland Energy Transition and Hydrogen. As hydrogen will be used in transport, where are we with our strategy? Are we still in the slow lane? Are we in the climbing lane? Are we still stuck in first gear?
Do you mean with the strategy overall?
With the overall strategy, please, yeah.
Well, I mean, we'd set out a timeline of having a strategy by the end of next year, and that's still the intention. So the next consultation phase, the next public consultation is March, and it remains March 2021. That's still the intention. The strategy itself is a document which will be underpinned by quite a considerable amount of additional policy, more detailed policy on each one of the topics already mentioned. So I would envisage that alongside the consultation in March, we will also see further consultations throughout 2021 and indeed beyond on more specific policy areas.
So when do we get the vehicle into fifth gear, into top gear, Meabh? When do you envisage?
Well, the strategy, if you mean when is the strategy going to be complete, November 2021, just in time for COP26.
Excellent. We'll take one further question from Dr. Bodo Gross in Saarbrücken in Germany. And Bodo asks, Northern Ireland has 16% curtailment. What is the share of wind and other energy sources?
Well, that's the dispatch down for wind so far this year. I think it reached its highest level in June, which was something around a quarter of dispatch down. So wind is represents approximately 85% of our renewable electricity generation, and renewable electricity generation itself is about just under 48% of total electricity in Northern Ireland. So 85% to 48%.
Excellent. Meabh, thank you very much indeed. We're running about 5 minutes behind, so we'll keep some of the questions later on if we can. And as we said, if we don't get to your questions, we will answer the questions offline and put the document online for everybody. So keep your questions coming. Keep it as interactive as possible. Meabh, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.